It is currently the rainiest of Mondays, and if you guys don't know what Monday is, it's time for a Q&A. So the rules are very simple. For those of you just joining us, all you have to do is leave your Halo-related questions in the comment section below, and I use a random number generator, pick maybe 5, 6, 7 questions, and hopefully they'll be answered on next week's show. Let's begin this week with a question from a random elite who says, "Alright, Late Night Gaming, 343 seems to be listening to the videos for Halo Wars 2. It seems beautiful. The visuals are stunning, the details are great, most importantly, it sounds like Halo, from the rattle of the old school Warthog to the Marines yelling funny things. Most importantly, Jeff sounds like his old self. His kill-tastrophe sounds epic." And so to answer your question, personally for me, I think that the Halo Wars 2 Blitz beta is very, very promising. If it's indicative of where 343 is currently with the Halo series behind the scenes. So let me go a little bit more in depth with that. Personally for me, the Halo Wars 2 Blitz beta, I didn't enjoy the Blitz game mode too much just because it's not really what I want from an RTS game. Luckily, though, it is just a single game mode in this game that I can just ignore. I don't need to play it. I can play some of the other game modes, and the earlier beta that we had last year, I actually greatly enjoyed that. So if the other game modes play just like that beta that I played last year, I'm going to really enjoy the game. But what I did really enjoy about the Halo Wars 2 Blitz beta, I really enjoyed the atmosphere of it, because it may not seem like a lot because, come on, we're focusing on the gameplay here, but for me, visuals, sounds, music and stuff, those are also other very important aspects of me enjoying a video game, which actually, now that I say that, it seems a bit redundant. I think that goes for a lot of gamers, but Halo Wars 2, what I really enjoy about it is that it seems like Creative Assembly and 343 have gone to great lengths to recapture the kind of soul that's been missing from the UNSC. I'm actually really surprised that they used the old UNSC logo. I was really expecting them to just retcon in the new logo, just like how they retconned in Chief's new armor in Halo 4 and retconned in Arbiter being a gross new Halo 5 elite, which, you know, they later would rectify in blog posts on Waypoint or something to go, oh, actually this is the lore reason, or just ignore that Halo 5 Arbiter doesn't look like Arbiter. But what I really enjoyed is just the focus, to the attention on detail, the attention that was put into kind of making the UNSC look gritty again. Like, they're green, you know, the smell of green. I really got that vibe from this new UNSC look. They're all green, they're very dirty looking, they're all scuffed up and stuff. Sadly, they still use the stupid looking Halo 5 Marine armor that makes them all look like Juggernaut rejects. For future reference, the helmet needs to be sharper in the front. Making the helmet comically round almost makes it look like they have these pudgy little faces squeezed in between pillows. But most importantly, what I really found myself impressed with while playing the Halo Wars 2 beta was they're fun again. The Marines have really funny, like, gung-ho banter and stuff, the little battle cries as they're fighting brutes and grunts. It all sounds so much like Halo. I love it. And so just overall, I was very pleased by how much effort was put into making the Halo Wars 2 Blitz beta look, feel, and sound like classic Halo again. And I'm hoping that this kind of style, this kind of mood continues into the mainline Halo games like Halo 6. You know, I'm excited. Let's move on to question 2, which comes from Spartan Wolf, who says, Q&A, I only recently started watching your videos and I love them, so I wanted to see what you thought about this. Do you think in Halo 6 or any other Halo title, we will get a true firefight mode, like in Halo Reach? So to answer your question when it comes to the firefight, I have no doubt that firefight will return in the future in Halo 6. This is just my personal opinion, by the way, just because they ended up adding it into Halo 5. Halo Wars 2 even is going to have its own little firefight mode. But I do think it's going to be very different. I don't think we'll ever return to the true ODST style firefight, because when it comes to the matchmaking aspect, 343 wants to make sure that the matches don't go on forever. Because true firefight from ODST, really you want to see how long you can survive. And so sometimes your matches can last a while. So if you're going into Firefight in matchmaking and you just kept going and the match never ended because you guys were so well equipped, I can see why 343 would want to try to put some kind of limitation or change it up so it doesn't last forever. Because say you've got work in an hour and you're like, I want to do a quick Firefight game. Well, here we go, we're an hour later and you need to be at work and the Firefight game still hasn't ended. And if you leave the game, you're going to lose all your bonuses and stuff. So I can see the need to make it so that matchmaking Firefight doesn't last forever. But I don't know. I hope that custom game Firefight returns in the future so that we can have ODST-esque Firefight modes. But ultimately, I have no idea because we don't really know much about Halo 6. Well, we don't know anything about Halo 6, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So the next question actually comes from Mark Marine. Now, Mark Marine's question is very long, so I'm going to try to simplify it just for the sake of time. But basically, he says that he's a really big fan of the Halo series. He also really enjoys the more intimate stories, focusing on Marines and ODSTs as opposed to the Spartans, because he does think it's very interesting to see the way that Spartans perform in combat from the point of view of a regular person, because these Spartans do seem almost like these magical beings. Like, how are they so incredible? Like, could you imagine seeing like an 8-foot-tall superhuman just kicking ass, moving unnaturally quick, like way faster than any human being on Earth? And so he pitched the idea of a game which was more grounded and more realistic in its gameplay, and you're playing as a Marine or ODST. That way that the Spartans could be kind of like these third-person additions to the combat. Whenever you're like in combat or something, you could see a Spartan jump down and start kicking ass, and it would be like, holy crap, that looks incredible. Just being able to see these like traditional Halo games where we're Master Chief and we're kicking so much butt, but seeing it from the point of view of one of the Marines following him. And he also says that the gameplay could also be kind of made a little bit more realistic, where simple units like the Grunt and the Jackal are now a lot more dangerous because you're just a regular Marine or something. So the gameplay is a lot more gritty, a lot more weighty and stuff. You find that damage done to you is a lot more impactful and stuff, and just redesigning Halo's gameplay so that it could be a little bit more realistic in a situation like this. Personally, he does not believe that 343 could pull off a thing like this, but he asked my opinion. So, in my opinion, I actually would love to see a Halo game like this. I've actually said this before. I would love to see some kind of realistic Halo game where it made it so that, like, your assault rifle, there was a real weight to every shot. Like, it wasn't kind of so comical and bouncy and cartoony like Halo traditionally is. I would like to see something where you have to, like, hug the wall for cover and stuff, like, terrified because only a couple plasma bolts will like burn through your skin. I'd like to see a Halo game with realistic consequences behind every action. Now, what worries me though is that games like these, like very realistic games, don't really sell as much to the mainstream audience. Like, you look at Battlefield. Battlefield used to take itself very seriously in terms of its combat, where Battlefield 1, here we are now with the Battlefield series, it's arguably much less realistic than previous Battlefield games. The movement is a lot more weightless and stuff. The handling of certain guns isn't quite as realistic as Battlefield is known for depicting its weapons. Battlefield is making a move towards more like, not arcadey, but much less complex Battlefield simulation scenarios, and that's kind of disappointing, but that seems to be the way that AAA gaming is as a whole. They want to make their games feel less realistic, that way it's more accessible to people, that way, you know, they won't jump into a game and they'll be like, oh, this is too hard, why does my gun kick so much? And so sadly, because of that, I doubt that a super realistic Halo game from the point of a Marine would ever be a reality, but who knows, maybe if the demand is strong enough, we could possibly see something like that. The next question comes from Halo Legend 131, who says, Q&A, if you could design the final mission for the final Halo game, how would you build it? Setting, objectives, characters, enemies, etc. Sorry if the question is hard to answer. Would love to hear your thoughts. As always, keep up the great content. So if this was, let's say, the final Halo game, all right, Microsoft has decided they don't want to make any more Halo games, and here's going to be the final Halo game. I would design the final mission almost as like a love letter to all the fan favorite missions throughout the Halo series. I would try to incorporate little elements of everything. Like, for example, the setting of it, I would put on an island or something, and I would begin the mission, funny enough, with storming a beach, only now it's like an epic beach, and there are like these massive mortar towers, and it's just insane, the scale of it. Like, take everything that you love about Halo, but blow it up and make it a little bit larger in scale. So, the storming the beach of the Silent Cartographer, I would have just a massive, large-scale assault on a beachfront with like hundreds of troops going in and stuff. Now, this is my phone keeps going off. Now, this is obviously in my head and stuff, and I'm creating this, not thinking about hardware limitations and stuff. But that's personally how I would start the mission. I would also have taking down scarabs and stuff, kind of like some of Halo 3's best missions, like the Storm and stuff like that. I would also have elements of like stealth. Maybe we could have some callbacks to some of Reach's favorite missions, like Nightfall from Halo Reach. And basically, I would end the level with you doing whatever the bad guy is for this final Halo game. You stop him, you get to his tower or whatever on the island. Maybe he has an evil lair on this island. If we want to be super corny, he has an evil lair on the island that we're trying to get to. We stop him or whatever, we set the fuses, now the island's gonna blow up. And man, now that I'm thinking about this would suck as like a climax. Like, the end of the Halo series is just on this tiny little island and you blow up an evil lair. Like, okay, we'll say that we're gonna blow up the entire planet, and for some reason we have to place charges on this island. Well, okay, we place the charges on the island, and I would end it with an epic Warthog run. And the entire planet would be like a Forerunner thing or whatever, so it would be coming alive, and there would be sentinels everywhere in the sky, there would be like thunder and lightning, the Warthog run theme would be blasting in your ears. It would just be insane, like massive Forerunner monuments are rising out of the ground and stuff. It's chaos everywhere, just as you're trying to get to your escape ship on your Warthog, as the entire world is basically coming to life and like exploding around you. I would honestly make the final mission of the final Halo game just a culmination of everything that Halo fans love about Halo. On to the next question from the Lost Guardian, who says, Q&A, are humanity still Reclaimers or the Reclaimers AI? So to answer your question, it's kind of basically no, AI are not Reclaimers. Halo 5 tried to retcon Halo's lore and make it so no, like, the reason humanity could access Forerunner artifacts and stuff is so that human AIs, which are the real Reclaimers, were able to gain. It's like, no, like, that was very, very quickly retconned in a blog post on Waypoint by 343, which I'm very thankful about. It was like, no, don't listen to them. They're dumb and stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. Humans are still Reclaimers, which I'm like, thank you, because if you guys stuck with your guns and Halo 5 did make it like basically say that robots are Reclaimers, no, that would be super stupid, but you know, thankfully that was retconned. But basically, when it comes to the Reclaimers and humanity, it's very unclear what makes a person a Reclaimer, because not everybody is a Reclaimer, surprisingly enough. Not all humans are Reclaimers. It seems like only a certain section of the human population have whatever it is that makes you a Reclaimer in their DNA. A theory as to what it is basically the Forerunner named the Librarian. She's kind of the one that helped devise the plan for reseeding the galaxy with life after the Halo rings would destroy everything. And so within humanity, she placed this thing called a gene song, which is almost like a post-hypnotic suggestion, only it's in your DNA. And this post-hypnotic suggestion basically compelled humanity as a species to eventually get to the technological level of the UNSC. Like, it compelled them internally to pursue being the perfect human, and eventually, when they were smart enough to begin actually constructing the perfect human, like super soldiers and stuff, and start pursuing the development of AI to assist these super soldiers. And so maybe there's some aspect to the Librarian's gene song that makes certain people, reclaimers, like, who knows? It's still very vague within the lore, but maybe that'll be explored in the future. And so I hope that answers your question. We're going to move on to the final question, which is from KillerWolf36405, who says, Q&A, do you think Halo needs a lot less lore in their games? I think too much lore makes it boring. There's no mystery to it anymore. And do you think Oddball will return? And what are your thoughts on this? So when it comes to Oddball returning, I think that Halo 6 is going to have most, if not all the game modes that we expect from a Halo game's launch. I really do think that Halo 5 was kind of like the exception in this case. And I do think that 343 really heard fan feedback, and they're going to make sure not to allow Halo 6 to release in a similar state that Halo 5 released in. But when it comes to the lore in Halo games, I think that the issue is not too much lore in the game and the inclusion of the expanded universe. The issue is how the expanded universe impacts the game. When it comes to 343's Halo games, they make a lot of references to expanded universe material, but it's usually in very kind of sloppy and expository ways that almost grind the story to a halt so that the story can quickly just provide an info dump on the player of all this insane expanded universe material. I actually think of Halo 4's cutscene where Master Chief meets the librarian and she's like, here, if you didn't read the Forerunner trilogy, this is the lore of Halo, and then boom, it just dumps all this stuff on the player. And if the player didn't read the Forerunner trilogy, all they played were Bungie's Halo games, they would think what they are seeing is nonsense because of how wild and crazy it is in context of like the Halo games that they're used to playing. And so doing stuff like that is really not good. You cannot just just dump all your storytelling on the player out of nowhere. Like, that's not very good storytelling. And as a fan of Halo 4 being my favorite story in the Halo series, I'll admit that was probably the dumbest and weakest point of Halo's story when it decided to stop everything. And it's like, oh, some people who are playing this story maybe don't know the lore. Okay, boom, and it just dumped everything that was really crazy and a lot to take in such a condensed amount of time. I forgot how long that cutscene lasts, but it was a lot to take in. And also, it expected players to believe that, oh, there were humans before the activation of the Halo rings, like other human beings. But they weren't like humans now. They were kind of like these Native American-esque people that looked very weird and not like the humans you are now. Like, it was a lot to take in, and I don't blame people for being like, oh, I hate the expanded universe of Halo, they should never include it again. And I think with Halo 5, the expanded universe never really impacted Halo 5's plot, and in fact that was one of the problems with it, I do think now on reflecting, is that it made a lot of references to the expanded universe, but those references never mattered or changed the narrative. All they do was almost be distracting, because it's like, oh, that's this. Why isn't that part of the story? Why are you just saying, look, it's blue team. Blue team. And then that's it. That's about it. All the history behind Blue Team never played a part in the story. It was actually kind of distracting that they were Blue Team, but they weren't actually talking about like past things. And I don't mean like idle dialogue. I mean as in within the story itself. There are lots of games out there that find very clever ways to introduce their expanded universe material to players, and I think that Halo should probably not tone it down with the expanded universe stuff. For example, with Halo 5, suppose the villain was the Didact again, only this time he was partially rebuilt and stuff. That way, for people who played Halo 4, they're like, oh, got it. Like, the guy that we fought in the previous game is the villain now, and he's partially rebuilt because we kind of threw him into a giant well of energy in the latest game. It wasn't due to some like expanded spin-off comic book or something somewhere where he got most of his body blown up and he was turned into a robot. So when it comes to Halo 6, I'm hoping that Halo Wars 2 actually has some ramifications on the events of Halo 6 in very positive ways, like maybe seeing the Banished as the primary faction that we're fighting against instead of more of the Covenant. Because it would really suck if in Halo 6, 343 made another enemy from the expanded universe that they pulled in and they had to quickly do a librarian-esque info dump on the player to explain this character's backstory in the game. Like, use materials from your previous game to construct the story in your next game. Don't rely on spin-offs and comic books and novels and stuff that maybe not all the players have read. Those are just my thoughts when it comes to that. Within the story, you can have allusions to expanded universe material, like for Halo 5, as bad as that story was, there are tiny things in it that I did like. Some of the little audio recording stuff that you could find, they actually had a little background narrative of this Forerunner, and the lore fans are going crazy because the thing is, these audio recordings of this Forerunner, they didn't impact the main plot of Halo 5, but it was kind of like telling its own mini story that the lore fans are really into, and they're really they're excited to see if they're going to continue in the expanded universe this story that was set up in Halo 5's audio logs. So doing something like that, that's really good, that's really healthy, because it doesn't intrude on people who don't really like the expanded universe and don't want it kind of overwhelming them because they don't have the money or maybe the time or the patience to read dozens of Halo novels and spin-off comics. But that about wraps it up. So guys, thank you so much for asking your questions. Remember to ask even more in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.